June 1942. The Pacific stretched vast and uncertain, an ocean where fate shifted with fragile moments. Since the devastating strike at Pearl Harbor, Japan's empire had advanced like an unstoppable tide, sweeping across islands and strongholds. Their navy, swift, disciplined, and powerful, seemed to dominate every horizon. Yet at a tiny atoll called Midway, history prepared its counterstroke. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, architect of Pearl Harbor, believed the time had come to end the U.S. Pacific Fleet. His audacious plan: lure the Americans into a trap, crush their carriers, and secure Japan's supremacy. Midway, a remote but strategic outpost, was the bait. From its runways, Japan could threaten Hawaii and perhaps force negotiations. Yamamoto commanded an armada of staggering strength. 4 carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, backed by battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and swarms of aircraft. He believed the Americans would walk blindly into his snare. But Yamamoto's secret had already been compromised. In sweltering rooms in Hawaii, U.S. codebreakers had cracked the Japanese naval cipher. Through endless intercepts, they uncovered the plan, its target, timing, and composition. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, commander of the Pacific Fleet, now held an invisible weapon: foreknowledge. Instead of being ambushed, he would ambush. Nimitz gathered what carriers remained: USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and the battered USS Yorktown, still limping from Coral Sea. 3 carriers against 4, fewer planes, fewer veterans. Yet with intelligence in hand, he gambled everything. On June 4, 1942, the first blow came. Japanese bombers roared over Midway, raining destruction on the tiny garrison. Hangars burned, fuel tanks exploded, and defenders fought with hopelessly few planes. But Midway endured. More crucially, the strike revealed the position of the Japanese carriers. Nimitz's moment had come. From the decks of Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown, American squadrons launched into the vast sky. Torpedo bombers skimmed low, while dive bombers climbed toward the heavens. Many pilots were barely trained, young men steeling themselves against the most formidable navy in the world. The first counterattacks ended in slaughter. Torpedo squadrons pressed in bravely, but were massacred by Zero fighters. Entire units wiped out, their planes crashing into the sea. Survivors watched comrades vanish in fire and waves, their sacrifice seemingly wasted. Yet by drawing enemy fighters downward, they cleared the skies above. At that instant, dive bombers from Enterprise and Yorktown, nearly lost after hours of searching, spotted the Japanese carriers through a sudden break in the clouds. Below, chaos reigned, aircraft rearming, fuel hoses coiled across decks, bombs scattered like tinder. It was the most vulnerable moment for any carrier, and the Americans had arrived at the perfect instant. Engines screamed as the dive bombers tipped into their attack. One by one, they plunged from the sky. The Japanese were unprepared. Their fighters were far below, chasing torpedo planes. The heavens now belonged to the Americans. The stage was set for the strike that would decide the Pacific's fate. February 19, 1945. Out of the Pacific rose a dark volcanic island, tiny on the map, but immense in value. Just 8 square miles of ash and jagged rock, Iwo Jima lay halfway between the Marianas and Japan. From its airstrips, Japanese fighters struck at U.S. bombers en route to Tokyo. If seized, the island would become a lifeline, a base for American fighters, a haven for crippled bombers, and a springboard for invasion. But the island was a fortress. For months, General Tadamichi Kuribayashi had turned it into a warren of tunnels, bunkers, and hidden artillery. Unlike earlier Pacific battles marked by suicidal charges, Iwo Jima would be defended with methodical, ruthless endurance. Kuribayashi's goal was simple: bleed the Americans white. For 72 days, U.S. battleships and bombers pounded the island. Beaches boiled under shell fire, ridges crumbled, and observers believed nothing could have survived. Yet underground, the defenders endured. When the bombardment ceased, their weapons were intact. On February 19th, the first waves of Marines stormed ashore. At first, silence. Then the island erupted. Mortars and machine guns poured fire into the beaches, where volcanic sand swallowed boots and bogged vehicles. With no cover, Marines fell in clusters, the black sand running red. The landing zone became chaos. Wrecked vehicles, burning tanks, cries of the wounded, smoke choking the air. Every inch of beach was a kill zone. At the southern tip loomed Mount Suribachi, a dormant volcano that dominated the battlefield. From its slopes, Japanese guns swept the beaches with deadly precision. Marines realized the mountain had to be taken, or the invasion would stall. Day after day, they clawed upward. Flamethrowers and explosives cleared caves and tunnels one by one. Fighting was brutal, hand to hand, suffocating in smoke and sulfur. The defenders struck from hidden passages, vanishing underground to strike again. Suribachi became a charnel house. Then, on February 23rd, came a moment that pierced the carnage. A small group of Marines reached the summit and raised the American flag. Photographer Joe Rosenthal's image of the flag against the sky became one of history's most iconic photographs. For those below, it lifted spirits, proof that progress was possible. Yet the battle was far from over. For if Suribachi was the southern fortress, the north of the island was a nightmare worse still. Kuribayashi's main defenses waited there, interlocking bunkers, artillery concealed behind every rise, tunnels connecting strong points into a living labyrinth. There would be no sudden collapse, no surrender. The Japanese fought to the death, forcing the Marines into a war of attrition that dragged on for weeks. Every yard was bought with blood. Marines advanced with flamethrowers, grenades, and sheer grit, silencing one bunker only to be struck from another. Smoke, ash, and screams filled the air. The cost mounted relentlessly. By the time the island was declared secure in March, nearly 7,000 Marines were dead and more than 20,000 wounded. Of the 21,000 Japanese defenders, almost all were killed. Only a few hundred were taken prisoner. Iwo Jima became more than a battlefield. It was a symbol of sacrifice. Its capture gave the U.S. a critical airbase, but the price seared itself into memory. For the Marines who survived, and for the nation watching, Iwo Jima epitomized the savage cost of victory in the Pacific.